Hello and welcome back to coverage here at the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Simon Gertzen, and we are in Barcelona, Spain here for this awesome team competition. 74 countries represented out in the field. And down in the feature match area right now we have Belarus versus Belgium. So these players, or these teams I should say, are 3-1 and 3-0-1, both of them with 3 wins. Playing for that crucial 4th victory here on day number 1. And we are in Team Unified Standard. Now, Simon, what's the matchup here? On the left, you see the deck that we probably see the most teams playing, which is Golgari mid-range.
Yes, this is the deck of the tournament. Almost every team in this tournament brought Golgari mid-range to the table.
Except for that one?
Except for Belgium. No, there are actually a few, I think.
So Michel de Broux, what is Michel working with?
Yeah, he's on this Chromatic Black deck. This was designed, championed, developed by Ali Entrazi, actually, and he has been tuning it. It relies on the power, the mana generating power of Cabal Stronghold, the mana fixing power of Chromatic Lantern, and then the versatility of Mastermind's Acquisition.
Yeah, so there's some really crazy top-end powerful stuff going on with his Chromatic Black deck. On the other side of the table, though, it's the least crazy deck in the format. It's the most kind of traditional bread and butter mid-range Magic.
It's, you know, sometimes it can be boring to play the best deck, but you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
Oh, nice.
So there's that Chromatic Lantern. Now, that does allow Michel to cast any, to tap his lands for any color, though in the main deck we don't actually see them branching out too far into other colors, just the Carnage Tyrants,
just the 2 Carnage Tyrants.
Yeah.
So at least in the main deck, you're not super reliant on the Chromatic Lantern resolving or staying in play. This is even more extreme if you're playing with Nif Mizzet, then you really need the Chromatic Lantern.
Yes. And there are 2 copies of Carnage Tyrant in the main deck in this mono black deck. The mana base is 4 Cabal Stronghold, 21 Swamp.
So while de Broux is on defense here, Potovin not having something to use his 5 mana on.
How is that?
It's. I mean, look at his hand. He has a Ravenous Chupacabra. He has a Carnage Tyrant.
Okay.
I thought there was another Jadelight Ranger, and he just didn't cast it.
What the?
That's very surprising. Is he playing around Ritual of Soot?
Ritual of Soot must be the thing he's thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, if you get Ritualed here, I think the game is almost over. So and if you have deployed the Jadelight Ranger at that point, still.
Why? Why is it over?
Well, it's a 3-for-1, and you lose your mana source for the Carnage Tyrant.
I mean, I guess I'm relying on some amount of value for the Jadelight Ranger.
It's a very conservative line of play.
Okay.
I would have just slammed it, because in the end you don't know how many Ritual of Suits you're up against, and you're playing against one of these decks where you don't really want things to go late.
Right. Now things getting interesting here. Here's Mastermind's Acquisition. 4 mana. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle, or choose a card you own from outside the game and put it in your hand. Now, how is that translated for tournament play here?
You mean outside the game?
Yeah. I mean, if people haven't seen that text before, it looks strange. You know, do I reach into my backpack and
or just to your teammates? You know.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Hey, give me that.
Yeah, that one is mine. I own it.
No, that's not how it works. You actually get to pick cards from your sideboard.
Right.
And that is why you have some one-offs in the sideboard that are only there to be fetched with Mastermind's Acquisition.
By the way, there's Carney T. Carnage Tyrant hits the battlefield for Potovin, and he just gets to stare down and say, yeah, well, if you have Ritual of Soot, I don't mind so much anymore.
Well, how about Cleansing Nova?
That would be a problem.
And this is the beauty of this deck. I actually watched our mutual friend, Kenji Egashira, play this.
Who, by the way,
stream.
just popped into the chat.
Perfect.
Good timing.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
He plays exactly this deck, and it is a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful deck. I am surprised. I'm going to be honest. I am surprised to see it at this level of competition, but I have to give full credit to Belgium here for just saying, look, this is how we are going to win things. How we are planning to take things.
So are we going to see Cleansing Nova here?
It doesn't get better than that.
There it is. Cleansing Nova out of the mono black deck. And there's Carnage Tyrant going, what? Come on. This is sweet, dude. I don't care. This is just great.
This is sweet, and we didn't even have a Cabal Stronghold yet, so De Broux is almost playing a fair game here. This might have been a really smart choice with the with how the metagame is shaping up. You're not playing against this many super aggressive decks that just run you over, because even the most popular aggro deck is kind of something like Selesnya Tokens, which takes a bunch of time to actually get to you, and where Ritual of Steward is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the setup here for Chromatic Black looks beautiful. We see the 3 treasures on the battlefield, as well as the ability to turn those into cards now. And with the 3-for-1 on that sweeper, things are looking pretty good. Now down to 10 life.
And Potovin tried to play around a sweeper in Ritual of Steward.
Yes.
Just
ran into a different one.
Didn't consider the 3 white one. Or maybe he considered it, he just couldn't really afford to play around it. Potovin is a former pro player from my era, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, was very very busy grinding GPs and Pro Tours in the time of, let's say, 2009, 2010, 2011.
So we see a bit of a value play here now from Potovin. He's going to play a Jade Light Ranger and end up just dumping both cards, Vivian Reed and Midnight Reaper, into the graveyard, but then uses Find to dig back the Reaper plus the Carnage Tyrant that he had lost. Now, he's a mana short on casting it, but that's a nice card to have in your hand. I mean, how many Cleansing Novas can you really expect to face here? And the answer is 1.
Yep.
And again, that's in the sideboard, but thanks to Mastermind's acquisition, just dig it up.
The real issue here is that De Broux has Carnage Tyrants of his own, and also is packing a lot more ways to answer Carnage Tyrant. You see the main deck Eldest Reborn. Sure, there's currently another creature on the battlefield, but that would already be a great play, and De Broux might even have more powerful things to do.
Also could see that Treasure Cove starting to get active, cashing that in for cards, though it doesn't look like cards is the bottleneck here for De Broux. We see in hand the Carnage Tyrant that you just mentioned, also a Karn Scion of Urza ready to go, and that Eldest Reborn, if that's the route that he'd like to take. So no shortage of cards, just a matter of what's the best way to deploy all of the sick gasoline in hand here.
Yeah, and actually pretty difficult sequencing decisions, because a lot of these cards restricted to 1 play a turn. You want to draw cards with the treasures because ultimately they're going to find you more swarms and maybe even the Cabal Stronghold you're looking for. But at the same time, if you can just make some tempo plays here with that much late game, it's also great. It's also great.
Carnage Tyrant is ultimately the play, while leaving up the Treasure Cove as well. Likely going to draw a card there.
Absolutely. I don't think you want to use all of these treasures for card draw. You can draw into Ritual of Soot.
What the? Yeah. Boy, a Ritual of Soot looks pretty good now. In fact, it would just be epic, wouldn't it? Clear away the board, get in for 6, and then already have the Eldest Reborn in case Potovin draws a land to play the...
True. The only downside is the Midnight Reaper. So well played by Potovin to only expose all of these creatures when he also has the Midnight Reaper to let's say, recuperate with.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be pretty. This, you can now see the power of Mastermind's acquisition, really giving you access to your whole deck and Cyber, to your whole 75, and being able to always fetch that one answer that you need, the right answer that you need.
Are we going to see a Ritual of Soot get searched up here? Or is there something even better?
I think Ritual of Soot is just the card you want.
It just
here.
seems so sweet right here.
There is a
I mean,
golden
you also
demise.
do 10 damage this turn, right?
There is a golden demise in Michel's deck as well, but that just seems weaker.
Yeah, lets the Jade Light Ranger survive.
Unless you kind of want that, but with the Eldest Reborn in hand, you want to clear the board. I'm pretty sure.
And de Broux knows about that Carnage Tyrant as well, right? The find was the way that it got into hand for Potovan. So
he knew about Midnight Reaper and Carnage Tyrant.
Right. So making a long-term plan where you wipe the board here, your opponent takes 4 from the Midnight Reaper, you hit for 6, or for 7, excuse me. So you do 11 down to 9. It's going to be tough to recover from that. Well, looks like we're going to take a little bit slower of a game plan here for de Broux. That's a thematic compass now hitting the battlefield. And the grind is very real. With 7 lands already on the battlefield, it immediately transforms.
It looks a bit scary to me, if I'm honest.
Letting the opponent untap here,
yeah.
you mean?
Sure, there's no detection tower most likely, but still, if something goes wrong, you're taking a bunch of damage here.
Well, the Spires of Araska will save some,
that does
right?
help, yes.
Yeah. But just as importantly, here's that Carnage Tyrant.
And that means de Broux is actually being rewarded because now he can
do both.
He can do both in the same turn.
Yes.
So there's no way that something sneaks in and
wow.
Gets
so
in
we
the
could
way.
see Ritual of Soot plus the Eldest Reborn to just wipe the board.
Yeah.
And then smash for 7 damage and put your opponent on a very short clock. There's 5 creatures on the battlefield for Potovan right now.
Marshall, this looks like quite the brutal matchup. At least this game.
It really does.
And if that's true, maybe the Belgians have figured it out. Maybe
seriously.
Maybe this Chromatic Black deck has a good matchup, like a positive matchup against the field. Okay, it is competing for Golgari midrange, which is a tough ask, but still, this looks amazing and a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed. Here's Ritual of Soot. So kill 4 of your 5 creatures. You go down to 16. Draw 4. I mean, it's no joke. That Midnight Reaper is going to be a full reload here for Potovan. But unfortunately for him, the board is going to be empty thanks to the Eldest Reborn. And bang, take an additional 7, and this thing can be over in a couple of turns. I don't really see a way out for Potovan at this point. The Eldest Reborn will buy back probably the Carnage Tyrant at some point.
It's
that
almost,
helps, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's almost like your opponent could be drawing 2 or 3 cards a turn, and they still couldn't compete with what your deck is doing.
Yeah, that's insane.
I'm really hoping that we get to see Zakama at some point, because that's just the best part when the Chromatic Black decks start generating arbitrary amounts of mana with Cabal Stronghold, and then you cast this, you untap the Cabal Stronghold again.
Oh no!
You activate it again.
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
and then you just shoot, I don't know, 6 times or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that is absurd.
It's also a 9-9 Vigilance, Reach, Trample.
Right, it has those other stats. That's actually the part I like least about Zakama, because you don't get to do all the super fun activated abilities. Instead, you just end up winning because you have this massive.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Dino, yeah.
Should be a 0-7, 0-9.
I'm sure de Broux will be disappointed about that too if Zakama ever makes an appearance on the battlefield.
Oh, these constructs are pretty big as well.
Yes, they are. Yeah, the clues, the treasures counting as well as the lanterns. And look at this, another Masterminds. This is the 3rd one of the game. I don't really see any way out here. I'm curious what it got.
Oh, it's just a Banefire.
Oh, just a lethal Banefire?
Yeah, just a lethal Banefire.
We're so disappointed, aren't we, Simon?
Yeah,
that's the easy way out.
Gotten my hopes up, but I guess an uncounterable burn spell that just finishes the game is not a bad choice.
It's probably the way that you would want to go against a black-green mid-range deck. All right, so it looks like game number 1 are going to be split on the other 2 tables. You see Belgium with Pascal Vierne on the bottom there, winning game number 1. And there it is, Banefire for the world. And Potvin can simply say, well, I can't counter it, and it's enough to kill me, so game 1. So that's 2 game 1s going to the team from Belgium. But Belarus did pick up one as well. So Karanov there on table A. He's on the far corner from where our camera is here. With Jeskai control, won game 1 over Michael Milas. That was the Selesnya token stack.
And Zakharenkov, sorry, was already the deciding player in the last round, where he beat Joel Larsen in the Jeskai round.
Yeah, that guy can play.
Somebody that can also play is Pascal Vierne. I think Pascal is a great European player, but in particular, this setup with the Belgian Magic community and his brother being his best testing partner really put the Virens over the top.
Where do you have Pascal on the Viren power rankings?
Oh, I honestly couldn't tell. I've played against both. I think they're both.
You being
really
diplomatic, or you really don't know?
I'm being diplomatic.
Okay. I'll let you maintain your friendships for now. Here's Nullhide Ferox. It looks like, yes, paid 2 to get rid of the, to make them lose all the abilities, and then sent it away with the activated ability from Teferi there.
Doesn't look great
It's
here.
not a great long-term plan, is it? Perhaps a counter spell of some sort would do it. I see Syncopate in the graveyard already. Ooh, counting mana. What are we doing here?
It just looks like Zakharenkov is so far ahead on cards. And I kind of appreciate a Nullhide Ferox sideboard plan. But at the same time, you're not going to catch your opponents off guard with the random 6/6. Like, it's not like I'm not playing cards to answer that. This is actually a powerful card. Oh, never mind.
Niv Mizzet?
No, March of the Multitudes.
Yeah, that's pretty good too. But
kind of didn't resolve, so.
Yeah, it's also a lot of food for Niv Mizzet.
It got negated anyway, so I think we're moving.
We're done here?
To the end of this match, at this table at least.
Wow. Zakharenkov really kind of just running over the field here. We, as you mentioned, got to see him win a decider, and now in fantastic position with Jeskai control against the tokens deck.
Yeah, it's always easy for these individual results or stories to get lost because teams kind of make it more difficult to follow them. But maybe this Jeskai control list of Zakharenkov is something to take a look at.
I mean, I love all the cards that are on the battlefield, so there's that.
I would have leaned towards Jeskai control myself. Just being able to play Niv Mizzet. I would have played Niv Mizzet, let's put it that way.
Yeah, one way or another, right?
In Jeskai control, is it Drakes or Chromatic Black?
Right, or Chromatic Black. You wouldn't have settled for the Carnage Tyrants
No,
there.
I would have just told my team, look, guys.
Sorry.
We can't play Golgari.
You're on White Weenie.
We can't play Blue-Red, so figure it out. It's like White Weenie and Mono Red.
Yeah.
But not Big Red, because I need the treasure.
Right, so. Yeah, please. This is Simon's team. You're just lucky to be here. By the way, we get to joke around with each other because this game is over. Nothing much going on. And could just end this turn. I don't know how big the Crackling Drake is, but likely lethal?
Together with the Niv Mizzet, yeah.
Right.
Or you cast some spells, draw some more cards, pump the Drake, and shoot your opponent.
Looks like 4 or 5. And that's going to be it. All right.
Millis knew it.
Yeah. It was just academic. And that is often the case when it comes to Niv Mizzet. If that deck gets to untap with it, it's usually GG. I mean, that's your finisher. That's what the whole point of the card is. And that was exactly what happened there. You saw Zakharenkov's nod and say, yep, got him. So that is one match to the good for Team Belarus. They are 3-0-1 coming into this round. And they're looking to to put another blemish on the Belgium team's record. They're 3-1.
The guts on these, the guts on this Belgium team.
That is, yes.
Just put Chromatic Black straight in the on the center table, just telling the world, we don't care what you think. We're gonna play it our way.
Well, I like this. Let's stick with this Chromatic Black deck anyway. This is what everybody wants to see because this thing is sweet.
And Belgium needs to win both of the remaining matches, but they're up a game, so
right.
Quite evenly matched here.
Yeah, they've actually got a pretty good shot at it. Also, doesn't hurt to have Pascal Viren as one of them. You know, your strongest player. And I agree with you. Now, the sample size isn't huge. I've seen a little bit of this Chromatic Black deck, like you said, from streams and stuff. But, boy, that game one, you know, Potovan got to do things, right? That wasn't Golgari missing land drops or stumbling. Like, he resolved a lot of spells, and I don't recall one mattering particularly.
No, everything he did kind of ran into the answers that De Broux had already prepared or was sitting on.
Or searched up with Master. I mean, that was kind of the game breaker, right? Is Mastermind's acquisition just gives you that flexibility if given time. And, you know, this Golgari mid-range deck isn't known for closing the game out super quickly.
No, I mean, this is already almost the most aggressive draw you can hope for.
Right. And on the play, it is nice. I mean, that's a significant clock.
And then what we might see here once again is the decision of Potovin. Basically, De Broux is asking Potovin now, are you going to play around Ritual of Soot again?
Yes.
Because if you do, you give me more time, then I'm going to Ritual of Soot anyway and maybe win that way. I think putting on as much pressure as possible is important.
Yeah, but this is a nice hedge as well, Simon. We've got Midnight Reaper here from Potovan. And what that means is I can still play into the board, and if you have Ritual of Soot, it's a fine backup plan in that you're not really pressuring my life total, and I'll just turn these cards back into more cards anyway. Yeah,
and this is something about the Midnight Reaper, which is maybe quite subtle, but you have the same issue against Deafening Clarion, for example, even in combat sometimes. So the Midnight Reaper, while nobody would call it the most powerful card in the deck, it is an important piece when you're playing against Master Mobile.
Absolutely, and that is a big part of the game plan for this Chromatic Black deck. We even saw in game one it cast a double white spell, Cleansing Nova, that it searched up with Mastermind's acquisition.
And this sideboard is actually quite tame with the Banefire, Cleansing Nova, and Zakama. I've seen lists that play all kinds of colorful cards,
bunch of nonsense.
Draw 7 for double blue, and whatever you can think of. So
this deck is so sweet, by the way.
Absolutely, I love it. We've already established that the Golgari midrange deck is not super aggressive, but here it has a clock on the battlefield. So I think Potovin is in a good spot. It's in a healthy spot. And for the Chromatic Black deck, there is definitely this issue of having to stabilize and then win the late game. And the Golgari midrange deck, it does play a strong late game itself.
This is interesting. So Chromatic Lantern as a mana source is going to get taken away by Assassin's Trophy, but immediately replaced by another mana source. So the Ritual of Soot play is still very much on the table here for De Broux, and he has one in his hand as well.
And giving your opponent a swamp when there's already a Cabal Stronghold on the battlefield is a real cost.
So what's the thinking here, right? I mean, obviously taking the multicolored aspect off the table could be something.
Potovin's reasoning is very simple, and it's absolutely correct as well. He is sitting there. He has Memorial to Folly and 2 Overgrown Tombs in hand. He knows that this is not a game that he can win going into the late game, which I would say about most games in this matchup, but in this one particular, it's absolutely clear. So he knows that the best card that De Broux has at the moment is the Chromatic Lantern, because the deck is significantly weaker without the Lantern. And that's just saying, look, I don't have anything better to do with my Assassin's Trophy. The card that wrecks me here is Ritual of Soot. Despite the card draw, it's just really, really terrible for you. This gives me the best shot at winning.
I mean, yeah, you know, the only flaw I can find in that is you're saying, okay, well, this deck is a lot worse without the Lantern on the battlefield. But look at his hand. It's just kind of not. It's like he did that turn draw a Carnage Tyrant, which is a little awkward, but De Broux can just cast all of the other spells in their hand. It's like...
Yeah, and he even has a backup Lantern. But we are working with full information, with perfect information. Potovin doesn't.
Sure.
Potovin has to say...
Potovin maybe is assuming that there's all these multicolored spells in hand? Okay.
And you don't know how the sideboarding went, what you're actually denying with this kind of play.
Trying to figure out what people are doing with their sideboards in a deck that you can cast any spell or search up any spell.
You're also destroying a mana source while giving your opponent one. So it's not your ramping, but it's kind of an even trade.
Right.
In quotes, but I think the reasoning is sound here. It's not a great position to be in for sure.
Right. But the good news for Potovin is that Midnight Reaper certainly did its job after that Ritual of Soot, because being almost out of gas, all of a sudden is looking down at now 6 cards in hand and duressing De Broux as well to set up a long-term game plan that could actually benefit.
So, okay, what I was going to say is the decision is between Karn and actually the Chromatic Lantern. Because you've already invested Assassin's Trophy into the first Lantern, taking the second one, I think, it has some real benefits here.
Like that Carnage Tyrant might never hit the battlefield.
Exactly. And also you are delaying everything significantly. However, the Karn is a very real threat that is just going to matter basically from next turn on.
Very nice hit there for Potovin as well. Plays Jadelight Ranger right off the top, sees a Carnage Tyrant, says, I'll keep that there, I'll keep that there.
How scary would the Karn have been, though? Is it? It doesn't feel unbeatable.
No, not at all. So De Broux now in an interesting position because he's got the answer for the Jadelight Ranger. There's a Vraska's Contempt right there. That part's easy. But has to plan on seeing a Carnage Tyrant next turn. That was revealed to the Explore trigger. And Potovin really is having a struggle here without just flooding out. Just has a bunch of lands in hand once again, even after having drawn all those extra cards from the Midnight Reaper. But still, Carnage Tyrant, well, that's a problem. So
his draws haven't been great, but now that there's the Tyrant, it grew his Ranger. He didn't want additional lands for sure. So next turn he has the Tyrant, and then he has Memorial to Folly, maybe for another Tyrant. It's not perfect, but with the few resources he has, I think he's making the best out of it.
The Broux is down to 9, so that's also a key factor. If he's to take the 4 damage from the Jadelight Ranger, it would make the Carnage Tyrant lethal in 1 attack.
And this is the thing. You can't play Chromatic Lantern and Vraska's Contempt here to somehow get a tempo boost. And you're 1 swamp away from the Cabal Stronghold actually generating mana, additional mana.
So the question is, does De Broux have to bite the bullet and use Vraska's Contempt here without furthering
You certainly don't want to.
No.
You might. I think what you want to do
against the Carnage Tyrant.
What you want to do is you want to play the Compass, get another swamp, and just take the damage. Say you're on 5, but then even with the Vraska's Contempt next turn, you go only up to 7,
and you're dead.
And you're very likely dead. So actually, almost perfect information for both of these players. Kind of an interesting spot, rare spot.
Yeah, one of the things that De Broux, of course, will be considering throughout this transaction is, well, if I can play my own Carnage Tyrant, I can simply trade.
But he won't be able to do that next turn. That's
now he will
not possible.
Yes, but with the Lantern.
But being on 9 against the Carnage Tyrant is so much better than being on 5 or 7 against the Carnage Tyrant and in a similar spot next turn. So here,
Eldest Reborn off the top of the library, and we see the windmill slam here from Belgium. Oh boy!
I mean, that was
by the way,
perfect draw.
Yeah, by way of update here, Simon, take a look at the bottom part of your screen there. Pascal Viren, the team captain, got the job done against Big Red, and this is now the decider. And boy, Belgium looks like they're in good shape behind this Chromatic Black deck just doing work, and that was a nice draw. Let's not discount that, but still,
De Broux wasn't out of it.
No,
but it would have been really awkward the next few turns.
Okay, here's Vivian Reed to stem the bleeding on the value train at least, though the damage is probably done from that Eldest Reborn.
I have to say, Vivian Reed seems super strong against this Chromatic Black deck.
Yeah, definitely.
Giving you a way to fight through the late game, and also the -3 is going to be super powerful at any stage of the game, basically.
You know, it would have killed your Niv Mizzets.
That's why you go with Carnage Tyrants
right.
instead. No Doom Whisperers, nothing. I think. Oh, actually, there's a Demon Lord Belgium log. So there is
that
a flyer.
is in the board. You can.
No, main deck.
Oh, main deck. Okay. So there's a thematic compass. So the value train again, continuing to move forward.
Yeah, what we've seen from this Chromatic Black deck is actually not how most of the games play out. Usually, it's a lot more focused around hitting all these land drops and generating insane amounts of mana, especially when playing against control. Here it's almost playing like more of a mid-range removal heavy strategy.
Yeah, sweeper-based strategy is what we've really seen employed here. To a great effect, though.
Absolutely. So difficult for Golgari mid-range to at the same time put on a clock and be ready for the late game that is inevitably going to come. Honestly, if you don't manage to have your opponent on a significantly low life total before the first mass removal hits, you're going to be in trouble no matter what. And those 4 cards from the Midnight Reaper, they didn't really make a difference. Okay, but of course this is far from over, so let's see.
All right, here it is, Carnage Tyrant. Perhaps the big finisher that De Broux needs to move things forward, but the fight continues. Golgari mid-range always seems to have some place to put its mana, and in this case, it's going to use Memorial to buy back Carnage Tyrant. So we're not quite done here yet, though I still think that the Team Belgium's looking good to advance to day 2. With a win here, they'd be through. They'd be 4-1. That 4th win being critical here on day 1.
It is kind of an awkward draw when you're at 3-0-1 and you really need those 4 wins. That can come back to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
It's effectively a loss.
Okay, well, Vivian Reed's doing a good job of keeping the action flowing here for Potovan. This time it's Thrashy B, thrashing Brontodon.
So here you can actually see how many ways Potovan actually has to deal with artifacts. His matchup might not be that bad after sideboarding.
Now a Vraska on top of the library as well. Carnage Tyrant that we got back last turn's now here as well. And things are looking kind of interesting now. This
what I find a bit surprising is that Potovan allows De Broux to have that many turns with the Lantern in play, with the thematic Compass in play, because those cards are what really fuel the Chromatic Black deck.
You mean rather than using Vivian Reed on them, or
no? But the Vivian makes sense because you want to keep her around.
Right. So go to 4 and then minus the.
But the Thrashing Brontodon, I think, would have been a viable alternative to the Carnage Tyrant.
I see.
Just saying, this card is too powerful for you to have.
And there is a window, right, where Thrashing Brontodon will not be able to deal with it.
The Compass is 2 lands away from flipping, so at least that won't happen.
Right.
And
land now.
If De Broux doesn't use the Chromatic Lantern here to great effect, then at least you have. Oh, but he does.
Wow. A second copy of Carnage Tyrant now on the battlefield.
I couldn't quite tell you what I was afraid of, but this is kind of what I was thinking.
He filled in that blank for you, did he? Kind of a big draw there from Potovan, though. He knew what that card was. It was a Vraska.
Suddenly, Potovan has too much action to decide on.
Right.
-3. kill your Lantern, Brontodon, kill your Compass. Let's see where that leads us. You can't race this board. Or just cast 6 mana Vraska.
Start making some pirates.
Rusted Contempt, of course, the dead card right now. Still a good backup to have.
Looks like Potovan may be offering a trade with Carnage Tyrant for another.
And he kind of knows that this has to be accepted.
And it is.
He has more ways to regrow creatures out of the graveyard for sure, so that benefits him. And you see him pointing at Brontodon and Vraska Relic Seeker.
Yeah, probably looking at that thematic compass and thinking, well, if we're going to do that, then this is the time to do it.
I don't see you wanting to have your opponent get another swamp and flip that compass, and then you can never deal with it again.
Right. Card is very annoying once transformed. Well, looks like it's going to be Vraska Relic Seeker here.
But she also has a -3. So you don't have to make a pirate. You can just destroy the compass.
It's got to be tempting to leave your opponent with just the one Carnage Tyrant left.
And then if De Broux wants to deal with one of the Planeswalkers, I actually like this when you have two Planeswalkers. Like, having one Planeswalker that dies to an attack is awkward. But if you have two, at least you know your opponent cannot deal with both at the same time and leaves himself exposed. Yeah, I'm surprised. I was expecting a more aggressive, not damage aggressive, but permanent removal aggressive line here.
Instead, Vraska Relic Seeker is going to make a pirate. You can see the benefits to this too, though. Her ultimate comes around pretty quickly at -10. She's already on 8 loyalty. And a bunch of Menace Pirates.
I don't buy it.
You're not buying it?
No. Ritual of Soot, kill your Vivian Reed, or bring your Vraska down to 1. Either way. And suddenly I don't see a way. I don't see a way out. And maybe even flip the compass, then I think the game is just over. Now if De Broux doesn't have a land, and maybe has to invest 3 mana to fetch 1, it's a different story. You can actually take a look, and it's I think it's a really tricky spot here. So we have to do some math. 6 swamps means De Broux gets 6 mana out of 4. So instead of 7 mana, he has 9 available, which means Mastermind's Acquisition can be used to fetch and cast a 5-drop. So Ritual of Soot is actually just an option.
Very live here, yes.
Straight up option here. And you get to flip the compass.
Here we go. Mastermind's Acquisition. I'm going to search my library, and Potovan sees the writing on the wall and just starts picking up creatures. There's Ritual.
Yeah.
With the mana floating.
It does hurt a little bit to only deal 1 point of damage with that Carnage Tyrant. But I do think it's the correct line. That Vraska doesn't look scary when you have the Carnage Tyrant on the battlefield.
Right.
This is actually a matchup where Detection Tower for Potovan would have been insanely good.
Yes.
I believe none of them is playing it.
This gets a little bit interesting here. The Thrashing Brontodon not doing a ton, right? But the Memorial to Folly down there on the bottom makes things at least vaguely interesting because there's still another Carnage Tyrant in the graveyard.
Threatening to get that back
right.
at some point. Yeah.
Right. So We shall see. It's been a very hard-fought match between these two.
Absolutely. De Broux is also on 9. He has to always be concerned about that. I just think now with the what is it, Spires of Araska?
Of Araska.
How are you gonna lose?
Right.
Unless your opponent really has the Carnage Tyrant advantage.
So Vraska just takes the full brunt of the attack here, goes from 10 loyalty down to 3. And there's another Masterminds acquisition. And this time we're going to search up cards I own from outside the game, aka my sideboard. And not do anything yet.
Might be Josu Ves.
Which just flood the board.
Which De Broux could have sideboarded out. It's actually in his main deck. And now just retrieved to make an army of zombie knight tokens.
A fine payoff if you have huge amounts of mana available.
He actually has exactly 10. 6. Exactly 10 would mean that he doesn't get to keep up the Spires, but who cares at that point? Looks a bit better than Vraska.
It's like Vraska, but for 5 turns and all at once. Okay, so now we get to see Spires of Vraska activated. It untaps target attacking creature your opponent controls and removes it from combat. So it just says, you were attacking, but now you're not now. There's that Carnage Tyrant back from the grave. That was a Vraska's Contempt that drew a pause there from De Broux.
And he drew he had a swamp to play. So now he has easily enough mana to cast the Josu Ves and keep up the Spires.
Wow, look at that. Kicked Josu Ves. That is a lot of mana. But boy, you get 8 2/2s along with the 4/5. They all have menace.
I actually expected an attack before casting the Josu Ves. Don't quite understand why you would give that information to your opponent, or if De Broux is not attacking here. I think trading the Carnage Tyrants is
it's good for you.
Good for you, absolutely.
Yeah. Does feel that way. Oh yeah, I like this. We're not using a die. We're grabbing 8 tokens. Boom. Huh. No attack at all from De Broux. That's interesting. I mean, Vraska's still there.
And she would have been there either way.
Yeah. Now she gets to keep trucking here.
Find finality? That's what you need.
That is one way to get out of a mess. It would leave Josu Ves and Carnage Tyrant on the battlefield, but all of those knights would go away.
And then the Vraska is suddenly quite relevant, I would say. And De Broux is kind of...
Wow, there's finality.
De Broux is being punished here for not trading the Carnage Tyrant, I believe.
Because now one Carnage Tyrant is slightly more evolved than the other.
And Podovin very smart here with the attack, saying your Josu Ves is currently just a chump blocker.
Yeah.
And of course Carnage Tyrant as well. Your Spires of Araska works against every single one of my creatures, but not against the Carnage Tyrant.
Right. So it ends up being an attack for 5 there after the finality math works itself out.
And then finally, the big question was what to do with the Vraska.
Wow, another Masterminds acquisition off the top. Seriously. So now, is it Cleansing Nova time? Like, where are we at here?
I can't believe that you want to do Cleansing Nova. What you want to do is you want to cast
What
the
is
Eldest Reborn after you've gotten rid of the pirate.
Okay, so how are we getting rid of the pirate?
I was thinking if we attack the Vraska with just the Carnage Tyrant.
Oh, to tempt them into blocking?
It's unlikely
It's
to
so
work, but
blatant,
but don't you want to do that anyway
Oh,
before
yeah.
you reveal
to leave your
that
5
you have
toughness back.
something?
Yeah, sure.
And by the way, if in this spot there is a Chromatic Lantern in play, the game is just over, because you are getting Zakama, and that's it.
And that's it. Which is really what I want to see, I'll be honest with you, Simon, but
Yeah.
since there is no Chromatic Lantern, I'll have to settle for something clever. This Chromatic Black deck is sweet. Like, watching this team work their way through these decisions with all the options they have. By the way, I don't think it's going to be lost on Potovan that they're now shuffling through their sideboard.
Potovan is a bit too experienced to
Yes,
miss these
he
details.
may have picked up on that read, but whatever. He's casting it either way, so may as well. There's the acquisition, and not going to go for the sideboard here. We're going to go for the main deck. There's the Eldest Reborn. There's Demon Lord Belzenlock. What is going on here? Because you do choose the mode, right? Like, the Brew can't change their mind. He can't change his mind and go,
You choose the mode when you cast it, yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we watch a lot of pro players play. What you do in these kind of spots is you have to know what you're getting when you're casting it. This is just one of these things where if you're starting to think when you're resolving it, you've probably not considered your options correctly. And here, I'm not a fan of doing that with the pirates still on the battlefield. It seems just doesn't seem right.
Okay, well, there's Vraska's Contempt. So that solves that problem.
So De Broux was missing 1 mana to go for Contempt and the Eldest Reborn, because if he had that mana, he would have killed the pirate with Vraska's Contempt, cast the Eldest Reborn,
And then
attacked Vraska, then cast the Eldest Reborn to get the Carnage Tyrant. Here,
uh-oh. There's mana being tapped here. Oh, it's Vraska's Contempt from Potovan, and that is a classic 2-for-1. Thanks to the +1/+1 counters on the Carnage Tyrant, it calmly runs over the remaining Carnage Tyrant, and that's a huge swing back in Potovan's direction. It looked like he was out of this multiple times this game, and all of a sudden it's in the driver's seat, Simon.
it's absolutely fast. It's a fascinating game because I think this was De Broux to win, and somehow he didn't close it. He didn't close the game, and Potovan found some incredible lines with especially surrounding that finality, but also how to maneuver the whole Planeswalker and Hexproof shenanigans, which of course he knows also from the mirror match. And suddenly De Broux needs to top deck, which to me is just unbelievable.
Wow, didn't find it. And that is Nikolai Potovan winning game number 2 in super impressive fashion. Really great stuff there from Belarus. Somehow, some way, multiple times finding that line.
And the thing is, if you're playing here and you are the best player on your team, which I just assume Nikolai Potovan is, you have the advantage that, sure, you have some support, but you are still kind of the master of your game plan, of your late game strategy. And I think it is a bit more difficult if you're in the Belgium seat and you kind of know your deck, but you also have really good players sitting next to you. So it's kind of more of a more cooks in the kitchen kind of setting. And I think it's up to especially Viren and Millis to now give exactly the right amount of support.
Know when to back off.
But also you can't now overload your teammate with information and conflicting game plans. It has to be really clear that this is a matchup where you're favored. You have a sideboard plan, and you know how you're going to lose because you just saw how you're going to lose. This whole Josu Vest thing, and your opponent still has finality in their deck. That didn't look great.
Look bad. I mean, that's supposed to be kind of the I can't lose anymore. Stabilize, win the game off of this, and it just was simply wiped away with one card for the most part.
But also, I don't think you can even allow the Golgari mid-range deck to have 2 active Planeswalkers at some point.
Yes.
You have to control the board sufficiently to either threaten lethal with your Carnage Tyrants, which we agree, Carnage Tyrant is no one if miss it, but or you'll just have to remove those Planeswalkers on site. The Eldest Reborn, I think, is the key card for the Chromatic Black deck.
Yeah, the kind of the sweepers plus Eldest Reborn plan seems very clean.
And you know now that Potovin sees his only way of winning this matchup in attacking your mana in addition to your cards.
Boy, that was a heck of a game there, Simon.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. After Viren won, I thought that the Chromatic Black deck would take it down.
I did too. By the way, there was a slow play warning issued kind of down the stretch on that game. So that goes more to what you were saying about teammates helping out. Hey, let me play. Because, yeah, warnings become game losses at some point. You don't want to push that boundary.
Slow play warnings also have another effect, which is that if the game goes to time, we don't have 5 extra turns, but we have 7 extra turns.
That's right.
It's actually a rule that is very rarely relevant, but I like it because it means there's never a strategic advantage to slow play.
All right, we're underway here in game number 3. All right, we even get to look at the battlefield. Let's take a look now at a play that we saw back in game number 1, Chromatic Lantern with the treasure map as well, and just utilizing mana in the early to mid stages of the game here.
And this is the perfect curve because you get to activate treasure map and you have already deployed a Chromatic Lantern. In fact, both of these players with very similar draws to what we already saw.
That's right.
But the Jade Light Ranger this time only with 2 power. So sure, 2 lands is free lands is great, but I think Potovin would have liked a bit more power there.
Only attacking for a meager 3 with his 2 creatures. And just not doing much here. Hitting a land drop and passing, but you got to figure that with the amount of mana spent and the fact that this treasure map is finding more and more action. Look at this, 2 treasure maps. And it looks like only lands needed here for De Broux as well. And look at this. A Carnage Tyrant hits the battlefield here on turn 5.
Also,
cleanly outclassing anything on the other side of the battlefield.
And look at the dominant permanent placement.
That was a very aggressive encroachment there.
Potovin is completely flooded here. He got the 2 free lands from Jade Light Ranger, and the rest of his deck is the rest of his hand is just lands and find finalities.
Oh no, that is really poorly matched up here with what De Broux put on the table. A bunch of artifacts that'll get him value later on, and a Carnage Tyrant.
If you add a Threshing Bronze to the mix, that's a good top deck.
There we go. How about a Carnage Tyrant on both sides? You get one, I get one.
If you add a Threshing Bronze to the mix, it doesn't look as bad anymore because you can start destroying some artifacts. You get it back, but you really need something more than what Potovin is currently working with.
So we're going to activate the treasure map there and transform it. That was on upkeep.
We might be witnessing one of the most powerful draws that the Chromatic Black deck is capable of. All your support artifacts, great mana. There is a Cabal Stronghold on the battlefield, I believe. It's barely visible. So effectively you have everything you want. You just want maybe 1-2 more swamps. Mastermind's Acquisition, and you're going to close out the game with that, especially with the treasures to help out.
And there's that Ritual of Soot to knock away the 2 smaller creatures.
And if you can afford to Ritual of Soot for such little value, you know that you're quite far ahead.
So once again, things looking good for the team from Belgium. We saw this kind of fall apart on them at some point, but things are looking pretty good here. Whoa. Attack with Carnage Tyrant, no blocks. Well, I suppose there's a Memorial on the other side there.
Still, how do you not block there?
I was surprised. I am still surprised. Whoa, De Broux down to 7 as well.
Yeah, he just took a half of his life away.
Wow.
So even if you're holding
game plan here,
even if you're holding the Eldest Reborn, I don't get it. This seems so risky. No, I really disagree with that.
I'm a little shocked to see it, to be honest.
And now look at this. You have the Eldest Reborn, you have a cast down, but your opponent has 2 creatures again.
It just seems like such a great spot to block when you already have treasure map rolling to refuel your hand in the late game. You've got another treasure map come. I mean, all you really want to do is
you're
trade.
winning by miles. You just
trade anything.
This is not a game of inches. If you trade, you're on 13. You have an Ancestral Recall on the battlefield. Another one ready to give you more treasures. You just need to draw anything really, and you got it.
And you will, thanks to the treasure maps. You're going to draw 2 cards a turn for the rest of the game, and then you can start trying 3 cards a turn if you want. Here's Vraska's Contempt to kill the Jade Light Ranger. I'm sure we'll see a block next time. Oh, do we have enough mana for... Oh, this is a little ugly, but we're going to see 5 treasures go away for Eldest Reborn to try to recoup that situation from before. It works. It's just...
It's just 5 cards down the drain.
Simon and I just gave each other a look because we just saw 5 extra cards just vaporize. Look, you do what you got to do at this point, I suppose. But, yeah, not the most efficient way to get the job done. But take a look at the board. It worked. Two more turns with that Carnage Tyrant, and we could see the game end as well. Potovan with plenty of cards to work with, though. Question is, how do you get out of this mess? I suppose it starts with another Carnage Tyrant.
And Potovan knows that this was a major victory, that last turn, that previous turn. But that doesn't really count if you're still losing, so you have to now capitalize on it somehow.
Okay, so we're going to see Find to dig back the Carnage Tyrant, but it's going to have to wait till next turn because of mana constraints there. So Midnight Reaper's the play. Ooh, Vraska's Contempt off the top of the library as well. Of course, there's an interaction with Memorial to Folly and the Eldest Reborn.
Mm-hmm. That's a fun little trick.
Kind of protect your creatures. De Broux draws a card using a Treasure Cove and sacrificing a treasure. In the meantime, though, Vraska's Contempt is going to take care of the only creature on the battlefield for Potovan, and that is Carnage Tyrant, getting to 1 turn of lethal. Now, there is a Carnage Tyrant in hand, though, for Potovan.
Mm-hmm. But the problem is, if he casts the Carnage Tyrant, he definitely doesn't have Memorial to Folly available. So the Eldest Reborn is going to get back something.
Yeah, I think it's Jade Light Ranger and Llanowar Elves, so
Okay,
probably
so
not the end of the world.
Not the biggest deal.
No. In the meantime, a duress off the top of the library from Potovan revealed, well, just a land left over from de Broux. So it's going to be trying to reload now with Jade Light Ranger. That goes away.
It's not even Jade Light Ranger.
It's a Merfolk.
Merfolk Branchwalker.
Branchwalker, you're right.
And this is the
mini
point,
Jade Light.
Yeah, this is the point where de Broux is potentially going to run out of cards.
Yes. That will probably happen.
And
like there is a window open here.
Oh, and we are going into extra turns.
Oh no. Well, we do have 7.
Just what we needed.
Let 2 lands in hand now for de Broux. I mean, it's a big attack when your opponent's at 5. 3 damage coming in.
So a draw is like another loss for both of these teams. Just to make that clear, unless Belarus somehow manages to draw again, but that's very unlikely.
Okay. These teams are trying to scrap it out to get to 4 wins here on day 1. At this point in the tournament, the 4th win would advance you to day 2. That window does close by the time we get to the last round, where you're not guaranteed it anymore, but could still make it.
Potovan's team debating whether to cast Vraska's content. I think that we will see it. I just can't see you going down to 2 and then you brick on your draw step. And okay, there is another Memorial to Folly. I missed that.
Yes.
So you know you have something, but it seems kind of unnecessarily risky, and it's not like Vraska's content has that many great targets in this matchup. Karn is one of them. Maybe the Demon Lord Belzenlock, but yeah, in the particular situation that we're in, this should give you better winning chances.
So we're going to see Memorial this turn plus that, and then there's going to be a Carnage Tyrant, and right now, nothing for de Broux.
And enough turns.
Is this real?
And it's enough turns to win, right? That's the important part.
It is quite easily. We're only on turn 3 of 7. Potovan has once again scrapped his way to what could be a winning position. There were 2 treasure maps transformed this game.
This is the mishap of the mismanagement of the treasure tokens coming back to bite the Belgian team. This is also their slow play warning being super relevant here.
Yes, absolutely. There's Vraska's Contempt, but that is not good enough. And wow, Belarus picks up the win. They are going to be 4-0-1, and they're going to advance to day number 2 after the hero of the day, Nikolai Potovan, somehow wins 2 games. I think both of them, at some point, we had the advantage bar fully in the opposite direction.
Yep.
I don't think that's ever happened.
He basically won an unwinnable match. Two unwinnable games.
Wow. Really impressive stuff from Belarus, and they've earned their spot in day number 2 with that victory.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, when it comes to Belgium, they're going to be 3-2 now, and next round is kind of go time for them.
Belgium
Technically,
has to,
they could.
They have to rattle. They have to really focus now. They have what it takes. They have good decks. I love the Chromatic Black deck, but you have to play more tightly.
For sure. Okay, well, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll have more live Magic here from the World Magic Cup. Don't go anywhere.
All right, I knew being able to talk quickly was going to come in handy because it's decider time. Let's head down to the feature match area because the pairings are already up for the next round, but we want to get through this. Daniel Becerra with Golgari mid-range against one David Garcia Rodriguez on Golgari mid-range. Mexico on the left, Colombia on the right, 2 and 2. Here's Marshall and Simon.
Thank you, Rich. So we're underway here, and again, this is a decider match. We're speeding it up just a little here for you so we can make sure to get the whole thing in before we start our next live round coming up next. But as you can see, double Golgari mid-range here, Simon.
And wow, more impressive, a turn 3 Vivian Reed.
Turbo start here for Becerra. Just runs out the turn 3 Vivian Reed. How do you, when your turn, when you're playing on the same, time of the game, a Merfolk Branch Walker while your opponent plays a Planeswalker that costs 5 mana, I don't like your chances.
No, this looks terrible, and there's even a detection tower for Daniel Becerra. So even a Carnage Tyrant, as far away as it might seem, doesn't really pose a problem here.
Jade Light Ranger now for Becerra as well, just really smashing. This could be a quick one. Decides not to take the Midnight Reaper, but another copy of Jade Light Ranger, yes, and there's already a Midnight Reaper in hand as well. There's finally land number 3, and let's see if we can get some more into hand here for Juan.
Okay.
Yes.
Rodriguez is in this game, for sure.
Yeah, that goes a long way towards stabilizing, and we're going to see an attack here offering up the trade Branch Walker for the Jade Light Ranger, and Becerra says, sure, I'm going to protect Vivian Reed.
Did he miss his Midnight Reaper trigger?
Does seem to be the case.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
For Becerra.
Yeah, but if you get so much value with your Vivian Reed, you probably don't need it.
Toss away a trigger or two and still be okay. And as you can see, Becerra really taking advantage of this early mana and now powering out a Carnage Tyrant. Boy, Llanowar Elves, man, still doing work after all these years. You see,
Llanowar Elves in 2018.
Yeah, it's just funny because that's a card that you're used to seeing if you've played Magic for a long time, and it doesn't really. I don't know, for a lot of people, it's not like, oh yay, Llanowar. It's like it's just a card that does its job. It's also fragile. It dies a lot. It's not very good late game, but boy, you see the raw power that it provides when you play it in the early stages. This is just absurd.
It just does something very unique on turn 1.
Yeah.
If we're talking about standard, of course, in modern you have other ways of generating that mana boost.
I mean, given the cards that you want to cast in standard, it's a Mox, right? It's not like you can cast a whole bunch of stuff and affect the board meaningfully in standard on turn 1 anyway.
And look at this game. I mean, the
spiraling
mana
out of
advantage of Llanowar Elves has translated into so much card advantage and so much board advantage that Rodriguez, even with perfect draws, will have trouble coming back from this. I don't even know which kind of cards you want.
Right. I'm curious too. I mean, he's hitting on so many different angles. He's got 3 small creatures, 1 tall creature, and a Planeswalker. Like,
exactly.
How do you answer all of that?
Just tell me which 2 cards you want to cast this turn, and how good is your board going to be?
Right. Because what I want to do is I want a Ritual of Soot plus Eldest Reborn or something like that.
That costs 9.
Right. And that also doesn't solve the problems.
Not all of the problems.
Right. Like the person would still be left with either a Planeswalker or a Carnage Tyrant after that. Okay, I guess the play is going to be Ravenous Chupacabra to at least start to stem the bleeding on this board state. But boy, the 2 really powerful permanents there, Karn plus Carnage Tyrant, yowza. And they're going to trade off Ravenous Chupacabras here.
I was going to say that the best thing that Rodriguez could probably have is a Carnage Tyrant of his own. But then it just happens to be that the detection tower is already on the battlefield for Becerra. So Chupacabra, the second Chupacabra in Becerra's hand, is just going to take out Carnage Tyrant.
Chupacabra needs Death Touch, bro.
You think it's not good enough?
Yeah.
Carnage Tyrant needs Death Touch. No, he doesn't.
Really doesn't.
But would be good.
Yeah.
Do you 1 to the blocker, 6 to you?
Yes.
Back in the day, we used to give Grave Titan trample.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I love me a gravy train. That was my favorite of the Titans.
Grave Titan?
Yeah.
I do have a soft spot for Primeval Titan as well, but I know I'm in the minority.
Yeah, right. If we did a poll, Primeval Titan would be the most popular by
Mhm.
a lot, right?
Yeah, but then if you exclude the Scapeshift players, then we're talking
It kind
about...
of brings it back down to earth. Still, the Commander players love it.
Then you have the Oath of Druids vintage players
Yeah,
that just
well.
love their Inferno Titan.
All right, well, that does in fact do it. Look, the truth of the matter is that Juan David Garcia Rodriguez was never in that one. Daniel Becerra cleans things up for Mexico and puts them at 3-2.
All right.